The town of Maple Grove was small, the kind of place where neighbors waved from porches, and every street name sounded like a bedtime story. But for 10-year-old Emily Wilson, the town didn't feel warm or welcoming. Not yet. She sat quietly in the passenger seat while her father Michael drove along winding roads framed by vibrant autumn trees. Michael, a former firefighter, had witnessed devastation many times, but nothing prepared him for the day the school collapsed, the day he lost his wife, Isabel. Isabel had been volunteering as an art teacher that morning when the building began to crumble. She didn't run away. Instead, she stayed behind, guiding students to safety and shielding them with her own body as debris fell. She saved lives, including Emily's. Emily survived, but she hadn't spoken much since. In the back of the truck, nestled among moving boxes, lay Shadow, a large German shepherd with eyes that seemed too human, too knowing. Shadow had been trained for rescue missions and had been there the day the school fell. Hours later, he was pulled from the rubble, injured but alive. Like Emily, he had lost someone dear. Michael adopted Shadow the same week they left the city. He needs us, Michael said. But the truth was, they all needed him too. As the Maple Grove Elementary sign came into view, Emily reached back and touched Shadow's paw through the crate slats. No words passed between them. None were needed. They were broken, but together. The bell rang sharply across the courtyard. Children clustered in groups, laughing and shouting. It was a kind of first-day energy that felt like a celebration the most, but to Emily it was static, loud, disconnected, impossible to hold on to. Michael gave her backpack a gentle tug and crouched down. "You've got this," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Emily didn't reply, only nodded before turning toward the glass doors. Shadow whined quietly from the truck window, watching her disappear inside. He wanted to follow, but therapy dogs needed paperwork, and Emily's silence didn't count as prescription. Not yet. Inside, the hall smelled of floor wax and fresh paper. Her footsteps echoed too loudly. Classrooms bustled with new shoes and name tags, but no one looked at her with kindness, only curiosity. The stairs, her quietness, her clothes, her stillness, they all set her apart. Lunch was worse. Emily sat at the edge of the cafeteria, sandwich and juice box tucked between her elbows like armor. Then came the taunts. "Nice shirt, silence queen," someone muttered. Laughter followed. Amber Reyes, tall, perfect, and effortlessly mean, stood just a few tables away. The principal's daughter, of course. She and her two friends sauntered closer. Without warning, Amber bumped the table with her hip, tipping Emily's juice over her tray. "Oops," Amber said, not even pretending to be sorry. Emily froze. Her hand stayed in her lap. She didn't cry or move. She just sat, wishing she could disappear, wishing her mom was here to tell her what to do. The room felt louder somehow, even though no one was really talking to her. The laughter wasn't funny. It was sharp enough to make her feel small. Inside, her chest felt tight, like her heart was trying to shrink to fit inside her ribs. She wanted to say something, anything, but words never came easily. Not since the collapse, not since she lost the one person who always heard her, even in silence. So she stayed quiet because what could she say that wouldn't just make it worse? Outside, Shadow waited, trained to stay still and follow rules. Something stirred inside him, a pulse of unease that tightened his muscles and made his ears twitch. He moved before anyone could stop him. A thud echoed as Shadow pushed the truck door open with a snout. Within seconds, he was past the school fence, weaving to the front office unnoticed, paws skimming over tile and linoleum. He followed a scent no one else could trace, the scent of a girl who felt alone. Gasps filled the cafeteria as Shadow appeared in the doorway. Some students stood, others backed away. But Shadow didn't bark or run. He walked slowly, steadily right at Emily. Amber stepped back just slightly, enough for the shift in power to be noticed. Her smirk wavered. Her friends stopped laughing. Shadow positioned himself between Emily and the others, forming a solid wall. He stood tall but calm, protected without aggression, present without noise. Emily looked up, blinking as if she couldn't believe it. "Shadow," she whispered. He turned his head toward her eyes, soft and alert, like he was saying, "I'm here. I've got you. Moments later, the teacher rushed in, breathless. Whose dog is this? She called, already reaching for her radio. Emily stood slowly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but steady. He's mine, she said. His name is Shadow. He's my therapy dog. It wasn't official, not yet, but in that moment, no one dared question it. By the next morning, news of the dog incident had traveled faster than the morning announcements. Some students whispered in excitement, others in fear. But the adults saw it differently. Principal Reyes called Emily and Michael into the office. Animals are not permitted on school grounds without authorization, she said curtly, narrowing her eyes. We're lucky no one was hurt. Michael stayed calm, but Emily could feel the tension in his hands as they rested on his knees. Shadow's trained, he said. He didn't hurt anyone. He came because he sensed something was wrong. Amber stood nearby, arms crossed. He lunged at me, she added, her voice just loud enough. It was aggressive, scared everyone. That wasn't true, Michael said quietly. Shadow hadn't even growled, but Emily stayed quiet, her throat tight. A disciplinary form was placed on the desk. If approved, Shadow would be banned from campus permanently. Then came a pause. One student, Lucas, stood just outside the office, watching. He had been in the cafeteria. He had laughed at Emily, too, but something about Shadow had shaken him. His eyes met Emily's for a split second before darting away. That evening, Michael sat in the car outside the school, gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. The building looked calm from outside, but inside him, everything churned. Every time he spoke about Isabel, it felt like reopening a door he'd tried to keep shut. He could still picture her. Pain on her sleeves, laughter at her eyes, the way she held Emily after every bad dream. Grief wasn't loud. It crept in quietly, especially in rooms where she should have been. He knew he had to speak at the staff meeting. There was something they needed to know. Michael stood before the staff. Shadow isn't just a pet, he said. He was a rescue dog, pulled from the rubble of the collapsed school, the same one where my wife died, and where he saved a boy. Gasps rippled through the room. Lucas, sitting in the back, looked up sharply. He was that boy, pinned under debris. Michael continued. The boy refused to leave Shadow's side. That boy survived. He didn't say Lucas's name. He didn't have to. The day after Michael's quiet confession, the hallways of Maple Grove Elementary felt different. Not quieter, but heavier, as if every whispered word now carried weight. Lucas avoided eye contact at lunch. For the first time, he didn't laugh with Amber. He didn't speak at all. That night, Lucas came home to find his mom at the kitchen table holding a news clipping. It showed the collapse, the rescue team, and a photo of Shadow being pulled from the rubble. You never told me, she said gently. Lucas stared at the image. He remembered the dust, the cold floor, the crushing weight above him. He had been trapped for hours, too afraid to scream. Then, out of nowhere, warm breath on his face, a nudge, the soft thump of a heartbeat beside his own. He had cried into that dog's fur, without knowing if help would come. Shadow hadn't moved. He stayed there, pressed against him like a promise. The next morning, Lucas asked to speak at school. He stood in front of the classroom, clutching the news clipping, voice shaking but steady. That dog, Shadow, he saved me during the collapse. I didn't tell anyone before, because I was scared. But it's true. The room fell silent. Even Amber said nothing. In the back, Emily sat perfectly still, fingers curled gently around her backpack strap. She didn't look at Lucas fully, but for the first time, something softened in her chest. She wasn't the only one carrying that day's weight. The truth had barely settled when something else started to burn, quietly behind the walls. The fire didn't start with an explosion, just a faint spark, a tired wire, a forgotten power strip behind the science lab sink. The heat built slowly, until smoke pushed through the ceiling vents. Emily was in the library, tucked into a back corner, drawing on a sketch pad she had worn down to a nub. The first alarm blared overhead. She jolted, pencil snapping in two. At first, no one panicked, but then the lights flickered and a second alarm sounded. The smell came, acrid plastic, real fire. Shouting broke out. Teachers called names. Students grabbed bags and scattered. Emily stood too fast. Her chair scraped loudly. She clutched her sketch pad, hesitated, then turned toward the hallway. Smoke poured in like a tide. She couldn't see the exit. A support beam cracked. Thunder in the room. The floor shook. Emily stumbled as ceiling tiles dropped before her. She turned back to find the emergency door chain from maintenance, blocked, forgotten. She was trapped. Elsewhere, Amber and Lucas were returning from the front office. They turned a corner, just in time to see flames crawling up the wall. Lucas grabbed Amber's arm, and they ran. The corridor vanished in smoke. Across town, Shadow was restless. He paced near the door, ears high, every sound sharpening his anxiety. Then the faint sound of sirens. He froze. He knew where he had to go. Pushing through the gate before Michael could stop him, Shadow tore down Maple Grove's back roads. Weaving through traffic, ears pinned flat, lungs burning, paws slapping concrete, gravel, cracked asphalt. He didn't need signs or directions. He followed the scent, fear, memory, smoke. The gym windows billowed smoke. Inside, chaos ruled. Students crying, teachers shouting, fire doors slamming. No one noticed a blur of her moving against the stream. Shadow's nose twitched. He turned sharply, darted down the east corridor to the library. Emily was curled beneath a desk, arms wrapped tightly around her sketch pad. Her breath was shallow, lips trembling. The smoke was thick, curling in angry ribbons. The floor beneath was warm. When Shadow burst in, she didn't move at first, thinking it a dream. Then she felt his nose against her hand. Firm, real. "Shadow," she rasped, barely above a whisper. He licked her face, nudged her shoulder, insistent. She coughed hard, tried to stand, but her legs shook. Shadow lowered his body beside her, pressed close, grounding and steadying. Then he barked. Once, twice, 3 times, sharp and rhythmic. Outside, a firefighter froze. "Wait! Did you hear that?" They followed the sound, crashing through smoke and broken tiles, until they found Emily and Shadow alive. But Shadow didn't stop. Even as Emily was lifted into rescue workers' arms, his body stayed tense, ears alert, nose lifted. He turned down another hallway, purposeful this time. He led them to the west stairwell behind a locked door. Amber sat coughing violently, tears streaking her smoke-smeared face. Lucas pounded on the wall, shouting, "We're in here! Help!" Shadow barked loudly, demanding. His claws scratched at the door's base, a signal. When rescuers pried the door open, smoke poured out like a wave. Amber stumbled forward, stunned. Their eyes met. "You!" she whispered. Shadow didn't stay for thanks. He turned again, nose to the ground, ensuring no one else was left behind. The morning after the fire, the school was silent, a silence that settled into brick, window glass, and scattered chairs. Emily lay in a hospital bed by the window. Her ankle was wrapped, her throat sore from smoke. Shadow rested at her feet, one paw draped protectively over hers. Every time she shifted, he lifted his head to check. The door creaked. Amber stood there, dressed in a borrowed sweatshirt and jeans, hair pulled back messily. She looked nothing like the polished, mean girl from the cafeteria. She was just a kid who'd seen too much in a single night. Emily sat up slightly. She didn't speak, but Amber stepped inside, holding something folded in her hands. "I found this near the stairwell," Amber said softly. It was Emily's sketch pad, smudged with ash but still intact. "I think you dropped it when they carried you out." Emily reached for it carefully, fingers paused on the edge of the cover. Amber sat on the edge of the bed, eyes on the floor. "I used to think being strong meant being louder than everyone else," she said. "But last night, when I was trapped and no one came, I was terrified." She looked up at Shadow. "But he came." Her voice cracked. "I don't think I ever said thank you to either of you." Emily looked down, then slowly back up. Her voice was soft but steady. "You just did." They sat together in silence. Not out of distance, but something closer. Peace. 2 weeks later, Maple Grove Elementary reopened. The paint still smelled fresh in repaired hallways, but something's a change in ways no coat of color could cover. Fire exits were reinforced. Emergency drills updated. Shadow was officially welcomed as the school's therapy dog. The vote was unanimous. Parents, teachers, even the district board agreed. Some healing didn't come from people. It came on four legs, with eyes that understood more than words ever could. Emily returned to class quietly. She didn't speak much, still, but she smiled now. Sometimes she even laughed. Every day at lunch, she sat at the same table. So did Amber, not out of obligation, but choice. One crisp morning, sunlight spilled across Emily's desk. She gently scratched behind Shadow's ear. He leaned into her hand, tail thumping softly. "We made it, didn't we?" she whispered. Shadow didn't reply, of course. But the way he looked at her, steady, soft, sure, it was enough. Because in that quiet moment, surrounded by new friends and second chances, Emily finally knew she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was home,